Hi everyone, I'm Nidhip. I'm the head of the School of Design here at Pearl Academy. Welcome to this webcast. I've got my colleagues here. I just want to, I'll introduce them in a second, but I want to welcome everybody who's watching. Those of you who don't know about us, we represent the School of Design at Pearl Academy. We've had a great year this year. We've had our students win all kinds of awards, appearing internationally at different events. We've had wonderful collaborations with groups like ADI, Triple ID. These are all, alphabets soup that you'll eventually learn to understand. But and we've won some pretty good awards as an institution as well. We were just awarded for the third year in a row the Best Design Institute in India by ASSOCHAM, which we're all very proud of. Yeah. And anyway, without further ado, let me set the tone for the conversation that we're having here. We're talking what probably most of you are wondering about, which is what is the future of design, especially in India, in the industry, and what will you be learning? What would a design student be doing when they're studying design, and then what are the expectations when they join the profession later on? So let me introduce my colleagues. This is Tapan, who is running our interiors vertical, Srishti, who runs our product and lifestyle vertical, and Urvi, who runs the communication design. So let me just start by asking you, maybe each of you, to talk a little bit about what each of those three departments or disciplines are, very briefly, so that people can understand what the difference may be between them. So Tapan, why don't you go ahead?
Hi. So I'm from the interiors department, and well, I guess everybody understands what the interior design and interior spaces are all about. We all live indoors, and the indoor spaces need to be set for ourselves. So that's where the starting of the interior design comes in. At a larger level, yes, interior spaces deal with residential activities, commercial activities, retail activities, and there are many others which are sort of slowly and gradually joining up. We are doing a lot of retrofitting, spaces, older buildings changing their activities, getting into others, and everywhere any of these things happen, you need an interior designer, an expert who can handle all these kinds of things, both at the level of how do you create spaces inside, and then how do you make the spaces do their work right, good, feel good, be good. That's how it is. Yep.
Great. Srishti, you want to talk about product and
hi.
lifestyle?
So within products, we deal with a very, very vast range of objects. I mean, look at what you're surrounded by, from the table to the light under which you're sitting, the furniture, the watch you're wearing, the phone you're carrying. So product really deals with objects that are functional, that are aesthetic, that are designed to serve a purpose. And within products, we're looking at industrial and accessories. So anything from a phone which is produced in millions of numbers to a watch that's produced in a few thousands. So it kind of spreads between the two, and it's really interesting to work very, very hands-on in the workshop, playing with materials, working with technology, 3D printing. So that kind of allows you to create things that maybe never existed before, and that's the fun of working in products.
So communication design, as the word suggests, is communicating, and communication is all around us. In the morning when we wake up, there's phones, there's a breakfast cereal, there is the bus or the car that you take, there are brands all around us, and it's a very broad course that looks at communicating all that we do in life. So right from branding to advertising, to creating films, to looking at websites, to creating experiences, it's all about communication design.
Great, thank you. I know there's a lot more to it.
Yes.
But we don't have a lot of time to talk about it. But obviously there's more information on our websites that you can always look at each of our verticals and see what each of these things are, and how they fit into the aspect of what design is in general. So I'm going to ask each of you maybe some particular questions. Urvi, I'm going to ask you first. I mean, many people are aspiring to become a designer. They kind of they're wondering how far can you go in the industry. So can you talk a little bit about fame and design? Like how many designers become famous? And is that really so important?
Okay. Yeah. I think fame is a wonderful thing, and everybody probably aspires to be famous. But the truth about fame is that it takes a lot of work, and in the field of design, it's teamwork. A lot of the team works together to create something. So the design is the asset of the team and the work that they put together. And it's how many, the ad campaigns that we see, we look at Ranbir Kapoor, we look at, Deepika Padukone, but we don't know the names of the people who have created those ad campaigns or the logos that are around us. We don't know their names.
So what is it that gives the satisfaction to a designer?
I think just knowing that your message has reached millions of people.
Yeah.
They're watching it, they are enjoying it, they are enriched by it, they are touched by it. Emotion plays a big role in communication design, and I think that is really what you are looking for.
I think if I can just add to this, I think good design is persuasive. It can, if you walk out, something that talks to you and draws your eye and it connects with you, and I think that's the power of design.
Well, that's a good point. I mean, sorry, Tapan, did you want to?
Yeah. I was just thinking that I mean, we need to probably look at this word famous in different ways. Famous is not the person who only comes onto the screen of a media presentation, and therefore the name becomes a household name.
Right.
But I think that designers do have their bit of being famous, and I know as an architect or as interior designer, my client comes to me because he knows me,
Right.
and my name will go as a word of mouth, not on a screen of a TV or a film or a magazine, cover, but it will go as my work. So one is that my work becomes my name, and that sort of travels from one promoter to another promoter to another promoter, and within the fraternity you get your name. So today if I go from Delhi to Chennai and I meet another interior designer or an architect, there is a high possibility somebody would say, well, we've heard about you, right? Now it's not the same famous as, let us say, a film star or a cricketer or whatever. I think there is this, but as everybody said, that the high is not how many people know me. The high is that when I've got something done, which is so very me and so very mine, and it actually comes up in reality and many people use that, it's a high. It's a huge high.
That's extremely, I also feel, I agree with all of you, and I think that point about the designer puts their work before they put their name.
Yes.
And the work is their reputation, so I think that's very important.
That's their calling card.
Yes.
Exactly. Srishti, I want to get to you. Raised an important point about the power of design in terms of persuasion. So how do you see design is impacting people? Urvi talked about design impacting lots of people and being able to persuade people, getting people to behave in certain ways, or even start big movements. So nowadays, right now, in our current environment, especially in this country, where do you see design impacting society?
I think we're living in a very, very interesting space in design right now, because there is an appreciation for what design can bring to the table, because at the end of the day, when we are creating objects or solutions, it's about the people, it's about the user. So imagine a product that is made for somebody sitting in a village, miles away from you, that you've never heard of. You don't know what their life is all about, but as a designer, because you identify a problem, you are able to go and find a solution for it. I'll give you an example. A student of ours created, she worked actually with villages, and she was looking at how collecting cow dung is a huge hygiene and efficiency factor for many people, and it's a traditional industry because cow dung is used for many, many purposes. So she created this device that collects and helps transport cow dung in a very hygienic and a convenient manner. Now, I would have never imagined a student who's never been or stepped outside her own city to actually be comfortable and go and do that. But it was very well received. I mean, she's an alumni now, and she's still working on that project to actually bring the cost down. So when she designed the product that was 500 rupees, now she's trying to bring it out to 80 rupees so that it is affordable at the bottom of the pyramid, and to be able to you know, spread it far and wide and not just sitting in a retail shop.
And for such an Indian product, and and you know, I mean, she was internationally recognized, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
she and another student, they were shortlisted. They went and exhibited at Dubai Design Week in November last year, and it was an amazing platform because you had designers from design students and graduates from across the world, 55 countries, all design schools on the same platform in the same place, and they get to stand tall and next to students. Some of them have actually done their masters in coming there. So they were very proud that just as graduates, they had that opportunity and their work was strong enough to participate and stand out in that place.
What I like about that is that it's, I mean, that project in particular is recognized because of its very Indianness. I mean, the idea of collecting cow dung, there's nothing more Indian than that. And yet it was recognized by the world. Now, so...
sorry, I was just going to say that, I mean, all the projects that we saw there were looking at making lives better for people, making products that are not just about consumption and, you know, buying the next cell phone, but actually that makes a difference in people's lives, that helps improve health, that empowers people, that helps them be better individuals actually. So it is a very, very powerful and a very effective tool.
So, you know, this is something that has occurred to me. I mean, we talk about the Indianness of these kind of designs and products and things like that, and yet we are constantly inundated by things that are made or designed, you know, abroad, like phones and that sort of thing. Obviously, that's changing little by little. But Tapan, I wanted to ask you about this. I mean, because for many people, people think as design as something alien, you know, in this country. Like design is a new career or a different career, but it's not actually, right? I mean,
no, I don't think so, because even if I look at it at a global level or any kind of a level, design, like she said, was to empower and to improve. Design has always been like that. I mean, I keep telling my students that, you know, right from the Paleolithic stage, when you made a stone tool, you were empowering people, and that's design, that's high design. When we are looking at a cave and we are trying to sort of go and stay there, and we are trying to sort of make our first post on the wall of how did you, you know, hunt or what did you do, I think that was design that was happening. You were doing something to the interior spaces, and as we grew from that little rudimentary lifestyle to a much more sophisticated lifestyle that we are having, we are continuously trying to improve. And any person, any individual is best equipped to look into his immediate environment. We can call it global, local, and whatever we got. Your immediate environment. So if I am in India, my immediate environment, my immediate space is right around me. So it may not be that I am doing something Indian with a flag on top of my head, but because I am responding to my immediate surroundings, it's automatically Indian. So if there is somebody sitting in England and he's trying to, or he's just responding to his immediate requirements, he's English. And so no matter what we do, even if we are going to even do a silly thing like copying, you still have to make it Indian, because it has to breathe in India, it has to work in India. In an interior space, we can wear whatever we want to, but our chole bhatures or our dosas will have to be cooked right here into our own interior kitchen, and your kitchen has to respond to that. So you do whatever. I think you will do things with yourself, you will do things for yourself and your immediate community and your people, to empower, to improve, and it works like that. And I think today, even the little thing that sometimes might say that we could have probably copied something out of sheer, you know, feeling that maybe something outside is better. I think that's long gone. That's long gone. Today, as an Indian, I'm standing there in front of everybody and saying, hey, look, come and make here. And so everything that happens is actually happening here. And most of our students, I think, are, I mean, whatever I have seen in the last 3-4 years, most of their projects are hugely embedded in their own environment, and their responses also are hugely
I could add,
affected by that.
Yes, I could add to that just recently we had taken a communication design student trip to Udaipur, and that was at a NGO called Jatan, and our students spent time understanding rural communication, understanding the community, how the economics work, how the people live, what the occupation is, and probably designing communication, designing experiences for the community. So what's interesting is that it can happen at the level of interiors, at the level of products, at the level of communication.
Yeah.
And we are more and more looking at our own country as well as understanding ideas internationally. And signage is huge.
Absolutely.
I think I have two classic examples actually. I mean, we're talking about a conversation where we're saying we should design for India, but actually even if you look at international brands, they are now designing specific to India.
Yes.
Like Volkswagen, when the cars were first launched, the horn was too low to be heard in the chaos of an Indian road. So they actually they redesigned the decibel level of the horn to be able, so that you're able to hear it, in the cacophony that's Indian streets. Another classic example, and this is, I'm sure everybody must have heard of this, when Nokia first came and they launched their one of the cheapest cell phones that all the truckers used to use.
Yes.
They're the first manufacturer who started putting lights in their cell phones, because the people who drive trucks in the night from city to city, they needed a flashlight.
Right.
And the sales improved because of that little addition. And that was a classic response to the context in which you're designing.
Yeah, context
India.
is incredibly important.
And that was the lead thought in the ad campaign. That worked so well.
So I've always found in Indian advertising, the best ones are the ones that are very truly Indian. Like you look at that ad and you say that is about India, and that's the one that resonates the most. I mean, because when it gets back to the local context, I think it's important. So there's a lot of questions coming in from some of our viewers. Let me just see if we can try to answer some of them. There's a few questions about like we have UG courses and we have PG courses, and some of these students who are coming from non-design undergraduate courses are asking about, will they become, how will they fare in a PG course just in 2 years? Now, some of you, I think all of you have some experience teaching PG students. There is that worry, right? Like if UG students are doing for 4 years, PG students are doing 2 years. In 2 years, is the expectation the same? Are they going to have any difficulty? Urvi, why don't you answer that question? Because we have PG in the communication design course.
I think if a PG student can get a job with Accenture, as easily as working with the design studio, and as sort of also looking at the undergraduate students who graduate and then get similar jobs with IBM or Walt Disney or whatever it is. I think that something says about the team, the faculty teaching that program, the students who are, even though they're not doing an undergraduate course, they are committed to the course and they are there because they really want to learn, and I think that drives learning, and they're able to achieve what they need to achieve to be able to be employable.
Right.
See, what I also found, Nidhip, was that our courses are designed for that purpose. So it is not that the UG course curriculum and the PG course curriculum are designed exactly the same way.
Right.
So the UG course curriculum is designed for people who are coming out of their schools and moving into a higher education system, and therefore actually there is a huge 1-year foundation for that, and then they sort of move into that, slowly mature into the design process. They are taking that time and it's embedded in that format. On the other hand, a PG course, the students who are coming are already graduates. There is a certain maturity that they already bring. They are already an exposure to higher education systems. So it may not be in the same subject. So they are picking power. I mean, they just sort of pick up the stuff a bit faster. And so the courses are sort of created, the curriculum is created in a way to suit these two kinds of students that are there. And till now our experience have been that both these groups have I think succeeded in their own ways.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
so I think it works, and we also keep changing our curriculum.
Yeah.
Over a few years, we sort of keep incorporating
Right.
these kinds of things. I don't think any student will have any kind of a problem or issues arising of which place they are entering
Right.
the academic process. No, I don't
Yeah,
think
I mean, I agree. From what I've seen in the last few years that we've been running PG courses, I haven't seen any difference in the kind of opportunities that are available
Yeah.
to the PG students or the UG students. I see them. There are maybe some aspects, in fact, where PG students, their background helps them become.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
In some ways, like a student who's coming from commerce would, because so many design students become entrepreneurs, they become involved in business. It actually gives them an edge,
Yes.
which maybe UG students wouldn't have.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So I think I think what I tell our students who are maybe anxious about that is that bring what you already are
Yeah.
to that course.
They're not supposed to forget what they have done in their undergraduate and become another person.
Right.
In fact, I mean, we have people who are mechanical engineers doing interior design, computer science engineers who
Yeah.
are sort of computer science people who are doing,
Right.
and they are bringing that into their that postgrad, even in interior and spatial design.
Yeah.
And I think it just enriches the whole thing.
I agree, and we've seen some amazing work from the PG
Yes,
students.
absolutely.
Amazing work. So I absolutely agree with you. Some questions are asking about generally, and this word I hear all the time, and I'm sure you always hear it whenever you're talking, especially to parents. Scope. What is a scope, right? Well, after I graduate with a communications degree, or I'm a communication design diploma or degree, or interiors or product, what is a scope? And I've always found that a difficult question to answer, because I think some people's idea of scope versus maybe my idea of scope is a little bit different. I always say that if you're good, people are hungry for design. There's always scope for a good designer.
Yes.
So I mean, would you agree with that? I mean, or how would you kind of flesh that answer out? Because to me, that's obvious. If you're good at what you do, and there's a market out there for it, which there is, the scope will find you.
I think that we, in our living time, we imagine that everything that could have been done has been done, right? But that's never really true.
Yeah.
And there's so much more to discover. So I think that there is no end to
I mean,
learning
I think what's happened with design is that today we are actually surrounded by design. Everything is designed, and till the time that people keep buying things and using things,
Yes.
and moving to houses and creating spaces and communicating with each other, I think the scope is tremendous. And I think today what's happening is people are also recognizing that they themselves want to have something interesting, new to see, to hold, to discover, to have a creative life. And I think design feeds directly into that. I find that in most cases, the scope is what the student builds.
Right.
Because there's so many avenues for you to take, whether it's finding a job, whether it's coming back to academics, or going for masters or higher education, or even starting your own company
Right.
as a creative entrepreneur. I think today it's tremendous. I mean, any of those avenues is something that you can build up.
Right.
See, I think what I personally have understood from this entire field of design is that we are not technology. Technology can become redundant.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. I think we took a little impromptu, unintended break there, but I think we're back. We had a little, since we were talking about technology, I'll ask in case we got cut off, in case we missed that question, I'm going to ask it again. It was a question that's been raised by a couple of people who are watching. The question is about that kind of famous word, scope, right? There's a lot of concern about whether there's a scope for design, for communication design, interior design, product design. So can we talk a little bit about what that means? I mean, scope, I've always felt that whenever there's innovation, there's scope. Like if you do well, if you innovate, if you if you come up with new ideas, if you work hard, then there'll always be a demand because the industry is hungry for it. So I mean, maybe you can expand on that.
Yes, what I was just trying to say was that in every lifetime you feel that everything that could have been done has been done and there's nothing new. What are we going to do now?
Yeah.
But we always find something new to do. We always invent ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think the education process, the learning process, the design process itself is such that it helps us question, it helps us find new meaning, it helps us solve issues around us.
Yeah.
And issues are always there around us, especially in a country like India. That's what we work with. So it's a great opportunity for us.
Obviously, there's a demand for good design.
There's a demand for good design. We need it here, right?
Yeah.
So I think for parents to know especially that there is a lot of opportunity in design. It's always been around, as Tapan had said. It's not new. It's not a new field. We have been doing this. We are just beginning to probably respect it more and enjoy it more in our lives. Srishti, you were saying?
I think I mean, very well put. I think the only thing I'd like to add is that, I mean, look around yourself. If you're always tempted to buy new things as consumers, so as long as you're tempted to buy new things, designers will create interesting things for you to buy. So it's always how the economy works as well. And today, as a designer, there's so much opportunity, really. There is a demand for good design because everything around us is being designed, from the very little detail on the little pen that you hold or the pencil you hold to your cell phones and the smartphones. They're all designed objects, and it's always going to go on as long as there is new technology coming in. There is new context, new needs. There's always going to be a demand.
I think there's a the things are being designed, but it's better. I mean, they're being designed sometimes by bad designers, and they're being designed by good designers, and we have a lot of not so good design out there in the world. But I mean, it's important to become a good designer, and I think becoming a good designer is like we've always said, anybody can become a designer. It comes from a natural instinct. I mean, Tapan, you and I have had this conversation before. You don't need any kind of special ability or anything like that. You need curiosity. The urge to kind of improve things. But I mean, there is a necessity to be kind of like have a training in design, right? I mean, would you agree with that, or do you? Is it important to be I don't know, certified or have a diploma or some paper that says that you're a good designer? I mean, what is it about design education, a proper design education, that makes you?
Well, both yes and no. I'm sure earlier designers happened by indulging. Yeah. But we are talking about a kind of a civilization where we are trying to sort of train ourselves quickly and get into the occupation as quickly as possible.
Right.
And in a large community of people, how does one know who one can go to? Is that person okay? Is the person not okay? And I think institutional education is primarily that. And that you have been in an institute, that you have covered a certain kind of training or for a certain amount, that if is certified, it's easier for you to sort of move into the larger world and say, look, here it is. So that is like a badge which you get. And so if you're doing a 4 years course and it's known that it's a 4 years course, that means that there is a certain amount of skill ability that you have honed. If you're doing a 2 years course or you're doing a 6 months course, so each one gives you a certain capacity to or ability to design, and that is what is certified.
Right.
And it's that which is, it helps. But I know of people also who have just worked with designers, worked with their hands, worked with craftspeople, and over a period of time have done decently good design work. I mean, we have people practicing like that too. But probably at the entry level they must have struggled. Now when you have a training, that entry becomes much smoother, becomes easier.
I think what it does is, I mean, two things I wanted to say here. One was, it allows you to maybe learn not from scratch, in the sense that you're not making mistakes to learn. you're at least being taught a certain set of variables that's like your toolkit to begin with.
Right.
So you're equipped with, you know, how to start, how to do things, and that's very critical. I think more importantly, I think in today's day and age, it's extremely important to have some kind of formal certification, because if we're asking and if we're saying that design has influence and impact, then we need to ensure that the influence and impact is positive, it's
Right.
ethical, it's sustainable, and comes from a sense of respect and responsibility.
Yeah.
And I think that's very, very critical.
And to add to that,
for
there's
design
something that is
education.
important here is that it's not the name of the certificate. It's the certificate actually, to me, the way I understand is, the certificate actually is able to identify from where you did that training. Because the institution is the resource point.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
the resource, the strength of that resource is what is identified from that certificate to the industry, that this person is coming from there, and therefore it's his or her abilities, at least the minimum standards are already in their minds.
Right.
And I think that is also an important thing. Which place you are getting your certificate from?
Yes, I wanted to add to that the idea of the formal education helps you experiment a lot more. It puts you in touch with so many disciplines. It puts you in touch with infrastructure.
Yeah.
It allows you, to know different cultures, maybe visit them, exchange programs. So I think there is great merit if you have the ability to get that education for you. Rather than struggle it out.
Right.
There are a lot of benefits to sort of educating
The
yourself.
cross-pollination that you're talking about across
Absolutely.
various
Yeah.
fields of design,
Disciplines.
Yes.
which can actually happen in a campus situation.
And which happen in real life, which eventually happen
Yeah.
in design.
I think what allows you to learn in an educational institution is the mentoring that you get from your faculty. I mean, nowhere else will you be able to get that. To be able to walk to be able to walk up to your faculty and say, "Hey, I'm having a problem with this. Can you help me out?"
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, try imagine getting somebody from the industry to take time out, sit with you for 2 hours.
Or sitting in a lecture hall
Yeah.
of 200 people, 300 people, and having the chance to go to the professor and say, "Oh, I'm having a problem with this. Can you help me?"
And the design, as we all understand, doesn't come from books.
Yeah,
It is the
There are-
mentoring that sort of,
Yes,
you
yes,
sit with your
yes.
teachers or whoever.
Yes.
I mean, I will not call them teachers, I will call them, well, senior professionals, right? Senior designers. So if you're sitting with senior designers and you're discussing and your projects and you're brainstorming with them and you're thinking aloud, you're sort of, I think that's what is, that in an institution can be done in a more compact, in a more comprehensive way. It's
Right.
not that you can sit in a library somewhere and you can read some books on design.
Yeah.
It will never, get to make a designer. So I think that mentoring thing that we're
Yes.
talking about is an important aspect.
And
yes.
to add to that is that, so we look at online education, and it is fantastic. It allows for a large community to learn and understand the subject. But at the same time, watching a YouTube video is not going to give direction to your work. That input that you get from your teacher or
face-to-face, yeah.
face to face, interactive.
Yeah.
And I think in the Indian context, our students are very happy in that system. They are happy to be face to face. They are happy to come to college to learn and interact, peer learning. That's another
very
huge thing.
important.
Yeah.
So I think you miss out on all that.
And design education is about questioning.
Yes, it's about
You have to
questioning.
have somebody to question.
Yeah.
I mean, so I think with products it's even harder because you need a space to execute. You need a workshop to make things. You want to work with wood
Yeah.
and metal and plastics and
Everything,
clay.
yeah.
And get your hands dirty. I mean, an institution can provide you that. It can provide you the infrastructure to play, and that's very important for design. Play is a critical aspect as well.
There's two things I want to take off from that. One is that obviously, what is the we were talking earlier about like certification and so on. I mean, but there are benchmarks, right? I mean, how do we benchmark ourselves as a design institution, or I mean, any design institution? Obviously, there are government certifications. There's this and that. So, but from your experience, from what our students have done, and we have a good experience now of students going out and working in the industry, going to further study. I mean, what are the benchmarks that you feel have made our students into, good designers? I mean, I have a firm belief that our students are good designers. But what can you talk about some of those benchmarks?
You want to start?
You go ahead.
Well, I would say that our benchmarking is at two levels.
Yeah.
One is our own industry,
Yeah.
right? That we talk about that, okay, here we are. And the other is that it's not only, it cannot be only limited to what my immediate surrounding is.
Yeah.
Benchmarking as a quality statement also needs to be at par with other countries,
Yeah.
which we call international.
Yes.
Now, as far as in my department I'm concerned, as far as this country itself is concerned, our graduates have had actually much better than many other institutes that I have seen of. They have entered the industry with a bang.
Yeah.
I have had students coming, I mean alumni, no more students, they have come back and said that, thank God we learned this.
Yeah.
Because the first thing we were given was do this. And there were students even in internship time training that in between they came and said, we are loaded with work because there are certain skills which we simply do better.
Yeah.
And so somewhere there, and I think that this comes because we are in connect with the industry. We have industry people coming in, sometimes as mentors, sometimes as examiners, sometimes just taking some master classes and etc. So we take their feedback, and as of now, till now, the feedback has been pretty positive as far as our own industry is concerned. And internationally, I think you can put in some more. I mean, we can go on otherwise.
So for me, I think with respect to benchmark, so there's the sort of more industry-oriented benchmark that your students are employable, that they're doing well, that they're progressing well in their career trajectories. I mean,
Or that they're employing themselves.
They're employing themselves.
Employing
And usually, I mean, in the few years that we've had alumni, most companies who've taken interns from us have come back to hire the same kids and more.
Yeah.
Our students, end up taking leads on projects much sooner than expected, and they're doing really, really well. They're extremely agile, and I think that's very, very critical. And I think as an institution, we also promote that we want independent critical thinkers, people who can go out and be given in any situation, any context, but actually perform and find their way on their own. And I think that for me is an important benchmark.
I mean, a good example of that is that just recently we finished a 3-month-long project. Our Bombay students, for example, they, as you all know, we had this collaboration with ADI, Association of Designers of India. And I was very much, paying attention to what was going on in that project. It was industry guided. Actually, our faculty didn't do much in that except help guide the students a little bit. Mostly they were guided by industry mentors. And what I saw in that was that our students, not even final year students, they were third year students, were thrust into circumstances which they've never done before, trying to find sponsors, dealing with vendors, doing this project. It was called Making Design Visible, and they just shined. I mean, they just shined.
They responded very well.
They responded incredibly well. We put them into a situation which they, at first it was like, oh my God, how do we do this? But because of that agility that you talked about, we trained them not to, learn a software or learn a certain skill or learn how to turn a lathe or anything like that. We said, learn how to, do many things.
Yeah.
And this is another point that somebody had asked that question, which I think is a very important question, especially for us now, is that a student has asked, maybe if I could read it to you out directly, verbatim. He says, let me find it here. Where is it? Sorry. Yeah, so I want to become a full-fledged designer. Means interior, fashion, product, UI, UX, graphics, how to do that. I mean, so this is now getting to that point which we were talking about before, cross-discipline, right? So how important is that now? I mean, because somebody wants to become a designer and wants to do all these things. Is that possible?
It's absolutely possible. I mean, in the realm of the way design teams work today. I mean, look at Accenture for an example. I mean, they've hired for their design team, they've hired product designers, fashion designers, communication designers, interior designers, all to sit together in a room, learn from each other, work with each other, and create a design object. Because today, anything you make, it could be service, it could be a communication, it could be a space, it could be an object. I mean, they all are looking at context from different perspectives.
Right.
So how does a fashion designer approach communication versus a communication designer? And that's an interesting mix. It's a nice melting pot of creative ideas.
So how does the education prepare for that? Because even though we have courses that we have a course called communication design, interior design, which has pathways, interior architecture, graphics, so on and so on. But then in that course, are you then just become a communication designer? Is there the scope to kind of fool around with other things? Or, I mean,
so let's take the example of a design house.
Yeah.
So today a design house largely is successful because it is able to handle right from branding to service design to whatever the client needs.
Right.
Right?
Which may be unknown.
Which may be completely unknown.
Maybe the client doesn't know what the solution is. They just
Exactly.
we don't need, this is the problem, find a solution for it.
Yes. So, and it can include a wide range of technologies. It could include people who may be artists, maybe singers. I mean, it could be anything, right? So, I think what communication design does is that it equips you to work in various aspects of design as well as work with different people. So it allows you to understand graphics as a basis.
Yeah.
It allows you to understand the basics of interaction, or you can even say UX, UI to some extent, as well as interaction. And of course motion graphics in terms of film or effects. So it gives you a broad base of this understanding, and then you can sort of go further, take up projects that allow you to go deeper into each one of these or one of these, and eventually merge them in an interdisciplinary project. Suppose a student from communication design may work with a product design student and create something together.
Right.
I think one thing is interesting about, I think, design as a discipline, as a process, is common to all vertical. I mean, the way a fashion designer thinks, communication, interior, product designer thinks, I mean, the design process and thinking remains the same. It's really the application and the modes of expression that change. I mean, today, if you have, let's say, a 3D printer, you could be printing fabrics, you could be printing typography,
which we are doing.
You could be printing layouts for a space, or you could be making spectacles out of it. I mean,
or even packaging. We've also done that as a project with product design.
Yeah, I think that what we need to, I mean, whoever has asked this question, again, I would like to divide it into two parts. One is the attitude, the other is the skill. So design as an attitude runs through all kinds of courses that one is talking about. So when I am doing an interior design training for myself, it's not that I will not respond to a graphic signage. I will not respond to a furniture object product. I will respond, and because I have that response, I will be able to relate, and in many cases I will be able to also intervene in that. So as a designer, because of my attitude and approach, I do have the entire canvas. Then comes the skill. Now, in a certain period of time, I can specialize one skill. I would say that because in design, learning never ends. This skill acquisition can just continue. It doesn't also have to be limited to the 3 years or 4 years or whichever program you take, or 2 years program. You keep picking up, and you just never know how much you can expand. And so that's one thing. But as an education, I think that our curriculum does help touch base with all various streams anyways. I'm not going to say that it becomes skillful, but your understanding, your clarity, your response time, all that sort of expands, and then it's your world, and you just continue.
I think the way I see design evolving in the next 5 years, I think most students who will graduate in 5 years' time, I think they can expect to work in multidisciplinary teams.
They have to
work with both global and local teams. So they could be working with somebody sitting in Australia, they could be working with somebody sitting in the US, and they could be working in different paradigms. They could be one day working with craft, and another day working with technology, one day working with clothing, and another day working with advertising. So it's a very dynamic space to be in right now, and it's extremely exciting.
I think you know, when we talk to companies in industry, who we are in touch with, the people who hire our students also, they almost unanimously say, and definitely the better ones, you know, the good award-winning firms, the ones who are doing good design, they all say the same thing. They say that, you know, we want people who are not, you know, isolated in one type of field, who can interact with either do those things or interact with teams which are doing those things. Increasingly, they're saying they want more agile designers, you know, people who are cover across. There's a question that has come which gets to something which is at the very heart of what my experience, and the question is, what's the difference between game designing in BTech and game designing in BDes? So the difference in engineering and design. Now this is a larger question in my opinion. It's what's the difference between engineering and design? So to set the context, Srishti, I'm going to ask you this question because this comes up in product design a lot, as well as game designing. But for me, I started it in science, and I went to engineering, and then I came to design. And to me, the biggest thing that I loved about design, why I felt I did much better as a designer, was that in engineering and in science, you have to read all these kinds of books and learn all this stuff before you ever get to design anything. 2 years of just like tests and then, okay, now design. But when I joined design school, an architecture school, you design from the first day. The first day, you don't have to know all this stuff, just start designing. It happens through practice. But Srishti, what in other ways is engineering different from design?
Okay, so engineering taps into the very logical, very systematic, nuts and bolts kind of space. And not to say that design doesn't allow you to do that, but design also taps into an innate artistic way you look at the world. So it kind of combines, in a loose way, both the left and the right brain, as we call it. So as a designer, you could be working on something that is extremely technical, but it also has to look good because somebody else is going to be attracted enough to buy it. So it has to look good. But it has to function very well, so it has to be technically sound. Now, as a product designer, I may not be entirely equipped to look at it from an engineering detailing point of view. So I will collaborate with an engineer to put the whole thing together. But the designer will have more the macro vision, so to speak. Who's going to use it? How are they going to use it? How long will they use it? How will they abuse it? You know, when we look at, you know, even a bottle of water, think of how many times it drops to the floor. It has to withstand that. So we might work with the materials engineer, but the designer has to say, no, it has to work better. So I think that's kind of where we, in some way, distinguish between design and engineering.
I mean, so anything you want to add specific to game design, since that's what the question is about?
So if I take that up, a game designer, as far as design is concerned, would be looking at the imaginative space of the worlds. You know, what is their sense? Why are we doing this? Why are these worlds set up? What's the narrative? What is the character like? You know, does he belong in this world? Is he like 50 years from now? What would he look like? And why he would look like that? Right? So it's getting into concept, it's getting into imagination, and also the working of that game. So the understanding, understanding the theory of game design.
How it, like the interface.
Yes, how is the interface? Why would a certain player react in this way? What is the conflict really? How do you solve conflicts? You know, how do you move to the next level? What is the motivating factor? So all these ideas, theoretical ideas as well as imaginative ideas.
One of the major important things about design is that the product or the end product of design has a heavy interaction with the human being. So now in technology, the human being is very often sidelined. The interface of the product with technology becomes much more important. In fact, I would like to put a third word called art. So what's the difference between a designer and an artist? So the artist gets into more of the emotional part of this. While the basic human interaction with that object is where the designer comes in. And like rightly you said, it is the imagination of the player of that game which becomes one of the core important issues, rather than can it be done quickly or not. So more than
or how should it be done?
So it's not that very stiff technical things.
Yes.
It's that human thing.
I mean, yes, though
culture, tradition,
to add
in.
to this, so for example, when you're looking at the idea of gaming, even if you look at one single frame in a game, so much goes on. so to dissect that entire thing technically, what's happening? This is moving from left to right, the camera is moving top to bottom, one object here is sort of changing shape. So you're
saying should it?
Yeah, should it or should it not? So even technically, many things are happening in that single frame.
So it is not a question of only can it or can it not, but should it or should it not?
Is it fair to say that, I mean, the designer in let's say in a game, or even in anything, anything that we design, for example, is more focused on the experience?
Yes,
right?
Absolutely. Sorry, that's a good word.
Maybe the technician or the engineer maybe focus more on the inner workings of it.
Yes.
How to make that experience happen would be the job of the engineer.
Right,
to make sure that it happens, effortlessly.
I think one of the key traits of a good designer is how empathetic they are. To the user, for the user that they're designing for. So to be able to understand human behavior, psychology a little bit, to be able to respond to the situation of the user. I mean, that requires a high level of empathy, and all good designers that I have met and know of have that trait. They're extremely empathetic, they're sensitive to how people react, behave, live. And that's a very important value that a designer brings to anything that they create.
We're getting near the end of this now. I know you and all of us, we can talk about this forever, obviously, but unfortunately we do have to close. So I'm going to end it with a kind of a speed round. So this is a little bit of a, speaking of games. So what we're going to do is I'm going to ask you all a question, and I'm going to ask you to answer it very, very briefly. So the first question I'm going to ask is, what is the most exciting thing happening in your profession, in your particular field today? What is the most exciting thing that's happening? Tapan, why don't you start with that?
Heritage. I think using our immense wealth of heritage, converting buildings which were till now redundant or are getting obsolete, making them new again, is something which is happening. And I think our faculty members and our students are doing a great job in that. We are connecting with people. And and NGOs like Intact, etc. I think it's working very well.
Great, I would agree with you. Srishti?
I think in design today, my God, it's such a huge opportunity. I think, we're looking at two extremes. We're looking at craft with technology. I mean, that's exciting. The fact that you could look at something like, he said, heritage, that something's been around for thousands of years, and today we're looking at technology that is going to be around for thousands of years. How do we bridge the gap? How do we make sure that what we've inherited continues with what we are going to devise tomorrow?
That's a very difficult thing to do, but people are doing it.
In fact, there was a time when they severed it. And it's really, yes, absolutely. I
think that's very exciting.
Urvi,
so I think for me it would be technology. The fact that communication design is moving out of a 2D space into a 3D space and an experience space, VR, AR. It's a very exciting time right now for communication designers.
I mean,
mind-boggling.
Reality itself is no what you.
I mean, if you look at a VR room, as they call it, it's an interior space. You're looking at graphics and communication,
and it's done on a device.
Interacting with objects, which are products. So,
absolutely, virtual reality is include, as does it's a real reality and virtual reality and augmented reality are all dealing with all types of design spaces, objects, and visions and so on and so forth. Okay, next quick question. What has surprised you? Say one thing that has surprised you about what your alumni are doing when they've gone out into the industry. All of you have alumni.
Can I go first?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so this was a really nice moment. Some of our students who had joined Accenture, they received a basic training for 3 months, and I think within the 4th month, they were able to get awards for Accenture.
Which is amazing. 4 months out of graduation.
Which is amazing, you know. So I think, and there were 2 of them who got awards. So I think that was fantastic.
So I think for me, it's more thrilling than surprising. Like, we've trained them to do this, so I'm less surprised but more thrilled when they do really well. So like, if a student gets promoted very quickly, earlier than the usual trajectory. Like, I was speaking to a student of mine who's working with Pepper Fry, and she just started 9 months in. She's now a project lead. I mean, that's thrilling.
Right.
I'm not surprised because we trained them to
Yeah.
do well.
Right.
But I'm definitely thrilled for them.
Right.
Yeah, it's not surprise. I mean, it's a thrill,
Yeah.
and I think I have too many of them. Very difficult to choose one. It started with somebody coming and saying that by the time that the person finished, she had 2 or 3 projects completely on her own,
Yeah.
which she had received. But what really, something I remember, one of the students actually took her final year project to the government of Delhi.
Yeah.
And had a discussion which spanned over a couple of months, and she had that confidence to go ahead and do it.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about too.
Yes.
And she definitely has that confidence.
And imagine a person fresh out of college with a raw degree in her hand,
Yeah.
going to the government of Delhi and saying this can be implemented.
Right.
Yeah, we had a similar case with the Bihar government. I mean, Delhi, at least I can expect.
Well,
some,
okay, yeah, all right.
I'm not competing,
No,
but
no,
I'm just
fine.
saying that. But maybe I'm a little.
Well, we also
competing
had
with
one
it.
similar case with Uttarakhand government.
So all over the place we
All over the place.
have students going out there and dealing with the
Yes.
the people who are
Yes.
very hard to deal
So it's
with.
the confidence, it's that confidence
Yeah.
of a fresh graduate which is amazing.
Right. So I think we again, like I said, we can go on.
can
We
go
can
on.
go on and on. I think this has been great. I hope for those of you who are watching, the students, parents, even some our friends who are watching in the industry, I hope that what we said here has some impact and has some resonance on what you're wondering and things that you're wondering about design careers. And if you need more information, by all means, please. Our website is chock full of lots of data which we couldn't get to, maybe specifically names of students, projects, all the things that we're doing. So please check out our website. And
they can send in their questions?
Yeah, and send in your questions. Like the questions don't have to end here. We're more than happy to field your questions, and we have our Facebook pages, we have our website.
And they can
so
drop
please
in.
do. And yeah, we
Come
feel
to
we have 4
campus.
campuses all over the country. Drop in anytime, come and ask us questions. So thank you very much for being part of this. Thank you,
Thank you.
for being an energetic panel, and hopefully we'll be seeing you soon. Thank you so much.
All the
Thank
best.
you.